Before I begin, I want to share something with you, not to seek sympathy, but so you'll understand that the man standing here today didn't arrive at this podium untouched. My scars didn't come from theory or textbooks. They came from nights I can still hear when the room gets too quiet. I grew up in a house where peace was fragile and violence was routine. My father's anger filled the air like smoke. It found its way into every corner. There were nights when I would lie in bed pretending to be asleep, hoping that if I didn't move, I'd be invisible. I learned to listen for danger the way other kids listened for bedtime stories. The sound of boots on tile, the sudden silence before the storm. Those were my lullabies. As a boy, I told myself that if I could just be good enough, quiet enough, invisible enough, the shouting might stop. But that kind of silence comes at a cost. When you grow up learning that love and fear live in the same house, you stop trusting both. You start to believe that pain is just the price of existence. That belief followed me into adulthood. When I put on the uniform of the United States Marine Corps, I thought discipline would erase chaos. The Corps taught me how to stand tall, how to follow orders, how to never back down, but it also taught me how to hide. I wore discipline like an armor. Beneath the medals and the posture was a young man still trying to prove he was worth keeping alive. On the outside, I looked successful. Inside, I was still that boy, silent, watchful, trying not to make a sound. Anger became my language. Control became my comfort. I mistook toughness for strength and numbness for peace. For years, I carried the weight of guilt that didn't even belong to me. Guilt for surviving, guilt for not being stronger, guilt for the things I couldn't fix. Shame whispered that I'd never be enough, no matter how hard I worked or how many titles I earned. But life has a way of confronting you with the truth you try to bury. For me, that moment came much later, when I faced my daughter's pain and realized that everything I thought I'd escaped was still living inside me. I could either keep running or turn and face it. That's where the healing began. Not in perfection or control, but in surrender. I learned that courage isn't always loud. Sometimes it's the quiet decision to stop repeating the same story and start writing a new one. And that's why I'm here today. As a man, not as a man who got it all right, but as one who finally stopped hiding long enough to heal. Good morning, graduates. It's an honor to stand before you, men who've walked through storms, made hard choices, and still found the strength to reach this day. A graduation in a place like this isn't small, it's sacred. You've already proven something most people never have to, that starting over is possible anywhere. Every name called today represents a story. Some are stories of struggle, some of resilience, some of renewal. All are stories of human beings who refused to let their final chapter be written for them. I know something about that struggle. When I was a kid, I used to lie in bed, pretending to be asleep while the chaos unfolded just down the hallway. The air was thick with fear, the kind you could taste. I remember counting the steps, the sound of boots, the silence that came right before something broke. I was small enough to disappear into shadows, old enough to know that love shouldn't sound like that. If I stay quiet, he won't notice me. That was the promise I made to myself night after night. Silence became my armor. But silence, brothers, is a tricky thing. It keeps you safe when you're young, but it traps you when you grow up. Years later, I realized that silence doesn't protect you. It imprisons you. Some of you know exactly what I mean. Maybe your story started in a different house, but the pattern feels familiar. Maybe you grew up in noise or neglect or nights where nobody came to check on you. And you learned the same lesson I did. Don't make it worse. don't speak, don't feel. For a long time, I carried that silence like a badge. I thought that if I just stayed tough, worked hard, and outran my past, I could leave it behind. But the past is clever. It finds ways to ride shotgun. Years later, when I put on the uniform of the United States Marine Corps, I carried that same endurance with me. I thought the Corps could erase my past, that discipline would overwrite the chaos. When I joined the Marine Corps, I thought discipline would fix everything. I figured structure could drown out chaos, and in a way, it did. Boot camp stripped everything away. Your name, your identity, your excuses. They cut your hair, your comfort, your individuality, and then day by day, they built you back up as something new. I remember the first morning standing in formation, the sun barely rising, the drill instructor's voice echoing like thunder, the cadence of boots on pavement, the sting of failure, the pride of endurance. And somewhere in that crucible of sweat and orders and exhaustion, I found a piece of myself I didn't know existed. Courage. Not the movie kind, the quiet kind. The kind that whispers, you can take one more step. That's the kind of courage that keeps you alive when life doesn't give you clean options. But here's what I learned later. Discipline can keep you standing, but it can't keep you whole. When I came home, I had the posture of a Marine, but the heart of a man still waiting to exhale. I could lead a squad, but I didn't know how to lead my own emotions. Then life gave me a second gift, love. When I met Leone, something changed. For the first time, I experienced love that was not conditional or afraid. She was patient where I was anxious, kind where I was guarded. Her strength wasn't loud, it was consistent. In her eyes, I saw the possibility of redemption, not as an event, but as a way of living. Together, we built a family. We found joy in the ordinary. Morning coffee, children's laughter, long drives with the radio low. Her love wasn't loud, it was steady. She taught me that gentleness doesn't mean weakness, it means strength under control. For a time, I thought that was the final proof of healing. I had a career, a family, a home filled with light instead of shouting. We built a family, a life. There was laughter in our home, even with the scars. And for a while, I believed that meant the healing was done. But the past does not disappear simply because the present looks better. Unspoken pain doesn't stay buried. It waits. It hides under success, behind smiles, inside achievements. It waits for the moment when life slows down enough for it to whisper, I'm still here. The night my daughter came to me, when she told me what had happened to her, it felt like time collapsed. Every memory I'd buried came rushing back like a wave. There are moments in life that divide everything into before and after. That was mine. My first reaction wasn't calm or wise. It was rage. A deep, burning animal rage that wanted to destroy something, anything. But somewhere in that fire, another voice broke through. You've been here before. And I realized that if I gave into that rage, I would become the very thing I had spent my life trying to protect her from. So I made a different choice. I picked up the phone. I called the police. That one act, simple as it sounds, was the hardest thing I've ever done. It went against every instinct I had, but it was the right thing. In that moment, I learned that strength isn't how hard you can hit. It's what you refuse to become. That decision changed my life. It shattered the image I had of myself, but it also freed me. I learned that real power isn't about control or intimidation. Real power is the ability to stop a cycle that's been running for generations, to choose restraint over rage, to choose healing over harm. I started therapy. And let me be real, it wasn't pretty. Sitting in that chair, digging through memories I'd locked away, talking about things I swore I'd never say out loud. That was harder than any deployment, any physical pain I'd ever known. There were days I walked out angry, days I sat in the car afterward and cried, days I wanted to quit. But slowly, something started to shift. I began to see that healing isn't about forgetting. It's about remembering safely. Those sessions forced me to revisit the boy I used to be, the one hiding under the covers, hoping morning would come before the shouting started. I began to speak the words I had never been able to say, and in speaking them, I found release. Healing is not linear. It is not a climb up a steady hill. It's more like a spiral. You revisit the same pain at deeper levels each time, understanding it a little better, holding it with a little more grace. I learned that triggers are not weakness, they are reminders. They tell us where the wounds are still tender, and in naming them, we rob them of their power. And one day, I believed it. Through that process, I discovered something fundamental. I was not broken. I was simply unfinished. The nightmares didn't stop right away. The anger didn't disappear. But something new took root. Peace. Not perfect peace. Honest peace. Peace. The kind that says, yeah, it happened, and yeah, I'm still here. I used to think worth was something you earned. Through medals, titles, paychecks, achievements. But worth isn't a paycheck. It's a pulse. You don't have to prove your value. You just have to believe it long enough to live like it's true. Worth, I discovered, is not a paycheck or a title. It is not granted by applause or permission. It's the quiet knowing that you're still here, that you still have work to do, and that your existence carries weight, even in silence. Sobriety became my streak of sunlight through the clouds. Service, my anchor. I started to notice the small miracles again. The laughter of my granddaughters, the quiet mornings with coffee and my wife, the peace of being fully present. Every one of those moments whispered, you made it through. And I want to tell you the same thing. You can make it through too. Listen, I know some of you are carrying more than anyone can see. I know the guilt that keeps you awake at night. The shame that tells you you've gone too far. The regret that whispers you've wasted your chance. But I'm here to tell you that you're not done. Education is not just the transfer of knowledge. It is the transfer of belief. When someone teaches you, they are saying, I see you, I believe you can grow. And sometimes that belief is enough to change a life. I've seen that same transformation here, in rooms like this one. Men who began doubting their own intelligence, now writing essays that could move mountains. Men who thought they were too far gone, now discovering that learning is a form of freedom. Because here's the truth. You've already done something most people never have to. Face yourself. That's courage. The past may explain you, but it does not define you. The pages that have been written do not dictate the ones still blank. You hold the pen now, and what you write next matters. So what will you write? Will it be a story of regret or a story of renewal? Will it be a continuation of the pain that was handed down to you, or a declaration that it stops with you? You have the power to write a different kind of story, one that turns tragedy into testimony, guilt into growth, failure into foundation. You do not have to pretend the past was good to create a better future. You only have to be willing to tell the truth about it and then move forward in spite of it. Forgiveness is not a surrender to weakness. It is a reclaiming of strength. When you forgive, you do not erase the past. You release your future. Healing doesn't mean the past didn't happen. It means standing in the truth of it without letting it own you. You can learn from the wreckage without living in it. You can choose peace without erasing pain. You can honor what broke you by letting it make you gentler. The cycle ends when you decide it does. You can't go back and change what was done to you or what you've done, but you can decide what happens next. That's redemption. Not in a church pew or a courtroom, but right here in your own chest. Every day you have the power to decide how your story continues. Maybe that means picking up the phone and calling someone you hurt. Maybe it means writing a letter you'll never send. Maybe it means forgiving yourself, not to erase what happened, but to stop reliving it. Graduation isn't the end of a sentence. It's a comma. Every time you wake up and choose growth over despair, you are writing that next chapter. Every time you help another man study, encourage a friend, make a call home, or keep your temper when old habits beckon, you are writing a different ending. The world needs those stories. The world needs the man who knows both pain and patience, both failure and faith. The world needs men who have walked through darkness and can still choose light. And that is who you are becoming. If there is one truth I want you to carry from this day forward, it is this. You are not defined by where you began, and you are not confined by where you are. The measure of a man is not in his mistakes, but in what he builds from them. You've got chapters ahead, and every one of them can sound different from the last. And so I charge you, as graduates, as men, as authors of your own story, write your next chapter differently. Write it with integrity, even when no one is watching. Write it with humility, even when pride tempts you. Write it with compassion, even when others think you don't deserve it. And write it with courage, because the world needs authors of hope more than critics of the past. And when you doubt yourself, and you will, remember this. You are worthy. Not when you're perfect, not when you've paid your dues. You're worthy because you're still here, because you chose to show up, because you've decided to keep writing. Your pages are waiting. Your story is not over. Write something good, write something true, and write something new. Congratulations, brothers. Keep believing, keep writing.